Hi, hey, hello. It is I, the real main event, the rogue soldier, but more importantly than that, I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and today you are going to be caught in the crossfire, but we will be caught in conversation. So without further ado, let's do this. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 8 of the podcast. It is currently 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, so luckily this episode will still go out in time for those of you that were concerned. Thank you to those that did reach out to me. I was woken up at 6 a.m. this morning by my neighbour's dog barking, so hopefully that doesn't interrupt this podcast. There's lots to cover this week, mostly wrestling related. Gabriel Iglesias, aka Fluffy, has finally come into Monsters at Work, though, the series on Disney Plus, as his character Gary. Of course, that is Mike Wazowski's nemesis. He's literally just a blue version of Mike Wazowski, which gave us a good little chuckle. Of course, us is Mrs. Crossfire and I. Big pop for that. Unfortunately, from the looks of things, he's only going to be in that one episode as of now. So hopefully, when/if they do make a season 2, of course, I think there's only 6 or 8 episodes. I can't remember off the top of my head. May have been 10, but he's only in the one episode for this season. So hopefully, as I said, he's in a season 2, and hopefully he's in it. I've finally finished the main storyline for Kingdom Hearts 3, and I am not okay. I just need a 4th installment ASAP. Although in saying that, I do still need to do the DLC, of course, the downloadable content for those not up with the lingo. Over on SmackDown last week, of course, SmackDown will actually be today when I'm recording this, so hopefully I can avoid spoilers. So damn good to have the fans, or WWE Universe, return full-time, COVID permitting, of course. From the get-go in Texas, the crowd was so hot, singing along to Mr. McMahon's theme song, No Chance, no. And the pop that Edge got when his music hit, man, was just like, holy shit, goosebumps. It was even bigger than his 2020 Royal Rumble return. It was just nuts. Grayson Waller and Ari Sterling, of course, Maddie Wahlberg and Alex Zane in the alternate universe known as the Independents, had an absolutely amazing match on this week's episode of 205 Live, and of course, it'll be last week's episode when this airs, so it's the July 16th episode, if you're listening even further beyond that. Money in the Bank. This is what the show was all about, the highlights of Money in the Bank, and of course, covering with a recap-ish of both Impact Slammiversary pay-per-view and Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series Night 2, but the highlights from Money in the Bank are the kickoff show match between the Mysterios and the Usos was a very good match, very back and forth. I couldn't pick a winner. This is why I do enjoy watching live, as whether, people don't like WWE, in this day and age, when it comes to production and storytelling in the actual wrestling matches, nobody does it better. It was a big, good back and forth match. Definitely a good way to hype up the crowd for the kickoff. Congratulations to the Usos on winning the SmackDown Tag Team titles for what I believe was the 7th time now, they said on commentary, so that's pretty good. Congratulations to Nikki Ash, or ASH, almost a superhero, on winning the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I love the spot where she did win, because of course they do the spot all the time where everyone's fighting on the ladders and someone, they try to climb up but everyone just gets distracted, or everyone stops getting distracted and pulls them down at the same time, sort of thing. So I like the little touch of everyone was so immersed in their brawl that Nikki, all of 5'2" or whatever she is, if not smaller, just kind of creeps up behind everyone, pulls the briefcase down. Big pop from the Texas crowd. Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley had an absolutely amazing match here. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm not the biggest fan of Charlotte Flair, but you can't deny that she is a workhorse. An absolutely fantastic match. By far, match of the night. Wow, go check that match out. And I'm so freaking happy for Big E, formerly Big E Langston, for winning the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Honestly, one of the better Money in the Bank matches overall in the last few years. One of the better ladder matches overall in the last few years. They didn't overdo it on the meaningless spot, but they still but they still had all the brutality you'd expect, from a ladder match. You know, in my opinion, the right guy won. I personally would have loved to see, you know, John Morrison win, who, of course, he is my favourite wrestler alive, all-time top 3. And I would have popped pretty hard for KO as well. Kevin Owens, of course, his, you know, prize fighter gimmick fits the Money in the Bank tenfold. But Big E getting the win here, in my opinion, has the most potential out of anyone else in that match. You know, fingers crossed he has a potential cash-in, that is. Hopefully they don't pull a Baron Corbin here, because that dude was on fire and then just kind of died. But, yeah, hopefully, yeah, as I said, Big E gets a successful cash-in. And I posted this on my personal Facebook page, and I was like half joking, half serious, but I said, if you don't get goosebumps every time Edge's music hits, then you're not a real wrestling fan. Changed my mind. Edge and Roman had an absolute banger of a match here. Great match. Could have gone either way. Of course, Roman Reigns won after Seth Rollins interfered, which was a tad predictable here. But they did actually do a few spots before that where it looked like Edge did have the win. Of course, took Seth Rollins interfering twice to finally get the job done. The first time Seth came in, he super kicked Edge, and I thought, okay, that's it, that's done. Edge, you know, he might still get the win here, but nope, they pulled, you know, the old Vince Russo swerve, bro, and Seth came back out, and Roman hit a spear because Edge was distracted. After the match, however, Roman grabs the microphone, he tells everyone that they must acknowledge him, and all of a sudden you hear the trumpets. Ba-ba-da-ba! John Cena is back. Honestly, I popped so hard. Cena was being really, really cocky, like he's still doing, you know, the whole hustle, loyalty, respect gimmick, but it was almost like shades of the old Doctor of Thugonomics days were showing, to be honest, and even Teak, Mrs. Crossfire, pointed that out. He was like, he's loving that. Like, it could have been that he was being cheered, you know, when I take him off guard, which he even said in a promo after it went off the air. But it was like there was, you know, cracks, shades of the old Doctor showing signs of rearing its head sort of thing. Over on Raw, Keith Lee is back. Despite the internet throwing out the word buried, Keith actually had a fairly strong showing against Bobby Lashley here. He did counter out of Lashley's hurt lock, and it did take 2 spears by Bobby Lashley to beat Keith Lee, if you count the one on the floor, which realistically you should. Of course, after the match, the rumors did come true that Goldberg is back. Goldberg confronted Bobby Lashley. Meh. Like, I understand why and the hows and the who's and the whatevers, but I'm just not interested at all in this match. I had my heart set on Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. It's turning into a Brock Lesnar versus Batista situation all over again in 2014, where it was teased and teased and teased. And it's gone, for those Southpaw fans out there. Karrion Kross, again, also had his Raw debut, or rather than return, against Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy's No More Words theme song is back! Spoiler alert, that would have been the song of the week, but because of other events, that is not the song of the week. But you should still listen to it, because it's a banger. They did promise when fans were back that they would bring it back. They delivered tenfold. Huge pop there. Hardy defeats Karrion Kross, ending his undefeated streak, but he used the ropes for leverage. Once again, just like Keith Lee, people are all talking about, oh, he's buried, they've ruined him, WWE doesn't care about NXT, boo fucking who. This is Karrion Kross's first match on Raw in front of that many people, and, as mentioned, Hardy has used the ropes. You could say that Karrion Kross was rattled, so to speak, in a kayfabe sense, due to the fans reacting to Jeff Hardy the way they were, throwing him off. Usually he's the one playing mind games. But whatever, Karrion Kross cut a promo after the match alluding to a feud with Hardy due to the dirty loss. Again, makes it make sense even more. Saying that Jeff Hardy has made a big mistake. Now, obviously, you can still have Jeff Hardy as a cheating babyface, a la Eddie Guerrero, my idol. Because, he does have the charisma to pull it off. They used to call him the charismatic enigma back in the day. And it does make sense in a way due to the feud that Hardy just had with Cedric Alexander. So maybe you can say, you can teach an old dog new tricks sort of thing. On top of that, this may not happen, but this feud with someone like Karrion Kross opens up so much potential for Jeff Hardy to finally, now more than ever, to bring in the Willow character, of course, Jeff Hardy's alter ego. And if I'm wrong, well then shit, I'll wear that. But the amount of times the word buried gets thrown around on the internet is just absolutely ridiculous. I recently, saw a post about the so-called smarks getting mad at the Let It Play Out crowd. I'm both a smark and a member of the Let It Play Out crowd, so come at me. But honestly, just let it play out. Y'all are going to bitch and moan for long-term storytelling, and then react like crazy on the off chance that if/when long-term storytelling does happen, once every now and a blue moon, you lose your mind. But I think if people got the stick out of their asses, the company would stick with long-term stories more, and you'd get them more often. That's my outlook on it, and if you disagree, then cool. That's your prerogative. Rant over. In the main event of Raw, Charlotte retained her newly won championship via DQ. Of course, Rhea Ripley attacks Charlotte in anger. And then, almost a superhero, Nikki ASH, just 24 hours after winning the Money in the Bank contract, cashes in, and we have a new WWE Raw Women's Champion. I'm assuming this is going to lead to a triple threat match between Nikki, Rhea, and Charlotte at SummerSlam next month. And with that being said, in all honesty, I'm expecting Nikki to kind of be a transitional champion here, but I hope I am wrong. Super stoked for her nonetheless, and the pop she got from the crowd was absolutely awesome. Awesome to see, especially, she was looking like she was almost on the outs before this new character. So, congratulations, Nikki. I've said before that the "This is awesome" chant is overdone, and to an extent, the "You deserve it" chant is also, but, definitely Nikki ASH, Nikki Cross, call her what you want. The "You deserve it" chant was definitely, well-deserved here as well. The song of the week is, with the return of John Cena, all of my nostalgia bones were absolutely tickled. So I am picking If It All Ended Tomorrow by John Cena, and the trademark, of course, John Cena's cousin, also a rapper in his own right. This, of course, is off the John Cena album, You Can't See Me. I got this album for my 14th birthday. Holy shit, that was almost 13 years ago. It was about 2 years after the album was originally released. I actually still have this album somewhere too. The whole album is actually pretty good, and I will fight you all on that. Again, that song is If It All Ended Tomorrow by John Cena and his cousin trademark. It's also in the ending credit scenes to, I think it's 12 rounds. It might be the Marine. I think it's 12 rounds though. It's one of John Cena's earlier movies. I should have researched that probably, but yeah, I was too busy marking out and listening to the album again on Spotify. The wonders of the internet, because I can't find my CD. Hopefully CDs make a comeback like vinyls did. But anyway, the wrestling news. Not much, news per se, as, a lot of it, in my opinion, did just kind of fall into the highlights category. But regardless, here we are. WWE finally uploaded the Broken Skull sessions with Kevin Nash, of course, hosted by Stone Cold Steve Austin. What? I was glad that it was just postponed in the end by a week or so rather than cancelled. Looking back with hindsight, it does make sense to delay it, as it did cap off NWO week, but it did have me worried there for a minute, and there's still no word on when the Nexus documentary and the Lex Luger documentary, respectively, will, or if they are still going to be aired. So hopefully we get an update on that sooner than later. The big rumor at the moment / report is that CM Punk apparently is finally in talks to make an in-ring return. Now, I'll believe this when I actually see it. Now, this has been rumored the last, 7 years, since he left WWE, so take it with a grain of salt. But this time around, the interesting thing is some of the more, quote, reputable sources have actually jumped on it as well. So I guess, wait and see. Honestly, I'm not going to be fussed either way. I feel he could probably still have great matches if he did return. So if it does end up happening, then cool. But I'm also not going to be too disappointed if not. I'm a fan of his work and would look forward to seeing what he could do. But I just don't want to get my hopes up too much. Although some are reporting that indeed he has actually signed on the bottom line. It's just a matter of not if, but when. Again, I'd probably, there's part of me that would mark out, but at the same time, with all due respect to Punk, you got to wonder, has he lost a step? Does he still have it? Like some of the all-time greats have shown ring rust a time or two. But, in saying that, outside the ring, I would personally love to see a promo battle between a CM Punk and an MJF, if this does indeed come to fruition. And perhaps this may be super left field to some, but I feel like CM Punk would be the perfect guy to be the manager or the handler, per se, for Malachi Black. Just think on that for a second. And of course, just like CM Punk, the rumors are happening as well about Daniel Bryan Danielson, going to AEW, maybe even New Japan. But again, this is all speculation, but there are heavy reports / rumors. Again, rumors, reports. It's not really real until it's right in front of you. But there's rumors, reports that WWE aren't happy with Daniel Bryan and have actually called for everything that has his license to be removed, whether it be from WWE video games to action figures to everything in between. So again, if this is true, this is a pretty big deal. Like, I'm personally not the biggest fan in the world of Daniel Bryan Danielson, but the guy is an absolute technical wizard, and he could be a great in-ring talent as well as a great coach literally anywhere he ends up. There's that old saying in professional wrestling, card subject to change, sorry. Nothing is ever truly final, set in stone, until it is actually happening right in front of us. And a lot of people need to, focus on that a lot more. I know it's in a little asterisk, or however you say it. Again, it's very early in the morning. Sorry if you came here for quality content. But, cards subject to change. So maybe we'll get Bryan, maybe we'll get Punk. Who knows? I'll believe it when I see it. But again, it would be cool to see either guy go somewhere else, see if what, they've got left in the tank sort of thing. Braun Strowman. Braun. Again, not a fan of him, but he has to make a living somehow. He has multiple new shirts on WWE Shop, and now there is speculation as to whether or not he will be making a WWE return or not. Of course, there is always the possibility that this could be overstock from an order they've made before his release, but then, if you're looking at it realistically, you'd expect everything to then be on clearance rather than, full price like they are now. But then there's also the chance that maybe that's how they recoup their costs. But again, just like everything I've just said, it's all pure speculation. He may be returning, he may be not. I personally can't see Braun in any promotion outside of WWE, but that's just me. So I guess we'll wait and see. And that would take me to the first recap-ish, as I've coined on this, podcast here. And it's Slammiversary. I don't know why I just said that with an accent. Impact's, annual Slammiversary pay-per-view. And on the pre-show, we had the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Of course, the Decay, which is now Rosemary and Jessica Havoc. Jessica Havoc officially a part of the Decay now after a few weeks of build-up, versus Fire and Flavor, who come into this as the champions, Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan. Of course, the match started with, Havoc taking control with her power, getting that babyface shine, although the fans were strongly behind Tasha Steelz specifically here. Now, Fire and Flavor isolated Rosemary, cut her off at every turn while they did a good job of getting their characters over. Havoc gets the old hot tag, destroys Tasha Steelz, but Kiera got a blind tag and takes over. Tasha did a massive dive to the outside, taking out Rosemary and Crazy Steve of the Decay on the outside. Came out of absolutely freaking nowhere, too. She was just standing on the ring apron one sec, and the next minute she was just in the air, and I was just like, okay, meant to be a heel, but I get it. It's modern wrestling. Can't gripe on it too much. Havoc makes a comeback on Kiera Hogan, hits the Tombstone Pile Driver, and we have a new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. These two teams, they did, they meshed a lot better than I was expecting. Tasha Steelz in particular has improved so much in the last few months. It was a pretty standard match, needed more, actual tag team maneuvers, in my opinion. In my opinion. I sound so pompous when I say that, but, keep in mind, this is all just subjective. But, yeah, it's a very solid match nonetheless. Congratulations to Rosemary and Jessica Havoc on the tag team title win. Over on the main show for Slammiversary, the opening video package was absolutely fantastic. Impact almost always has really, really good video packages, especially when it comes to, the big shows like Slammiversary and A Bound for Glory, which obviously is to come later in the year. The opening match, as a lot of pay-per-views are, was the X Division Championship match. It was, for the first time in over 2 years, the Ultimate X match returned. It was Trey Miguel versus Ace Austin versus Petey Williams versus Rohit Raju versus Chris Bay versus the current reigning X Division champion in Josh Alexander. And of course, for those that have never seen an Ultimate X match, of course, Mrs. Crossfire had never seen one before, and she was very excited about this. There are two cables hanging above the ring that make an X shape, and the championship is hanging in the middle of that, and then the competitors have to scale the ropes and grab the title. So like a ladder match, but not a ladder match, if that makes sense. Although Jeff Hardy did actually use a ladder to win a tag team Ultimate X match a few years back. This is actually the first time that ever happened. But anyway, yes, the match starts. There's a little bit of comedy here from Rohit Raju. That was kind of his, part in this entire match. He did it very well. He was too scared, to jump from the top rope onto the cables. And eventually, when he tried to, he, quote, falls. Very, it's a Three Stooges slapstick style comedy. Very good stuff. He tried to lasso the title down with a rope at some point that he'd hit under the ring. Big pop. Rohit's antics in general were probably the highlight for this match, for me. And again, as I've said on here before, I am a sucker for the comedy. I'm not going to spoil everything he did, but he had me laughing my ass off throughout the entire match. It was a very different take on the Ultimate X match. Again, I believe that is the first time that has happened where they've lent into the comedy aspect of it. Now, at one point, there was a 4 or 5 person submission with Josh Alexander applying an ankle lock to Chris Bay while Alexander himself was hanging upside down, yes, upside down, by his legs from the X cables. And then, of course, this is where the traditional high-risk offense of, the Ultimate X match kicks off. Well and truly here, for that matter, Petey Williams hit his Canadian Destroyer off the cables. I absolutely lost my mind. So fucking dangerous, but so awesome to see at the same time. Rohit had hit a jumping flatliner on Trey Miguel while he was on Josh Alexander's shoulders. And Josh Alexander and Chris Bay had a chop fest while hanging from the cables, having a tug of war over the titles. Ace Austin attempted to take the title from them with a springboard, but they lift the title up. Ace face plants. Alexander knocked Chris Bay down. Your winner and still X Division champion, Josh Alexander. This was a very, very good opener here. As a rule, as I said, the X Division usually always opens the events, and for good reason. You've got to start off hot, and they well and truly delivered here. Big thumbs up, round of applause for everyone in this matchup. Don Callis had a backstage interview, of course, hyping up the main event between, his man, Kenny Omega, and the challenger, Sami Callihan. In match 2, we had Brian Myers with Sam Beal and Sunil Dashwood with Caleb with a K. Yes, that is his real name. Caleb with a K. That's what it says on the nameplate. Pops me every damn time. Versus Matt Cardona and a mystery partner. Of course, again, there was heavy speculation. It was kind of obvious, and it did come true. Myers' partner is his real-life fiancé in Chelsea Green. Now, this is a very tangled web because, of course, Myers is the real-life best friend of Cardona. Dashwood is the ex-girlfriend of Cardona, and as I just said, he's teaming with his fiancé. So, what a tangled web we weave. I mean, it's good to see that everyone is able to be professional about it. in storyline, Myers is trying to make Cardona uncomfortable so he'd, quote, leave Impact. It was, as I said, it was kind of obvious that Chelsea Green was back, but it was a nice little touch. She got, welcome back chants from the fans. The match itself started off hot. Brian Myers hit a lifting flatliner to Cardona on the floor, and of course the heels take over from there. Cardona gets attacked 3-on-1, of course, while the referee is distracted. Myers tried to spear Cardona, of course, a callback to their days as the Edgeheads. Cardona hit a beautiful spear of his own. We got a hot tag to the hot mess. Myers broke it up as it looked like Chelsea was about to get the win. Cardona comes in to fight off Myers but gets low-blowed by Tenille. But Cardona was wearing a cup. Of course, this was a reference to the week before that where Tenille had low-blowed him being Cardona, on Impact TV the week prior. So in this case, Tenille hurts her hand. Nice little, heel gets their comeuppance moment here. Cardona applies a mandible claw to Myers' face. Well, it's not really a mandible claw, but applies a claw to Myers' face with the cup. Ew. Pretty funny spot there, though. Chelsea hit a Canadian Destroyer on Brian Myers. Then Tenille tries to use Chelsea's own finisher against her. Of course, the Unprettier. Chelsea counters with a low blow to Tenille, and then hits the Unprettier and picks up the win. Very good match. It was kind of felt like filler at the same time. Like, I felt this match could have been, on Impact TV, with all due respect to all the people in this matchup. But it was good to see, Chelsea Green make her Impact return on a live pay-per-view in front of fans. Match number 3, we had Eddie Edwards versus W. Morrissey, a.k.a. Kaz XL, a.k.a. Big Gas in WWE. Eddie Edwards' theme, as always, is an absolute banger. So awesome to have fans back because they were singing along to it, as was I, sitting from my armchair. This was a very sniff/snug, strong style matchup. Morrissey caught Eddie Edwards in midair while Eddie was attempting a suicide dive, and he being Morrissey, hit a absolutely brutal chokeslam to Eddie Edwards on the apron. Made me cringe super hard. Like, it's kind of, an average spot in modern wrestling when you look at it, but still every time I'm just like, hey, that's a broken back, that's a, broken rib, whatever. Eddie makes a small comeback, hits a modified Shining Wizard, of course. That's his Boston Knee Party finisher on the floor. Both men almost got counted out, but they get back in. Morrissey shakes it off, tries to hit an avalanche fall-away slam off the top rope to Eddie Edwards, but Eddie Edwards has a splurge of momentum, gets a very close pin attempt. Morrissey used the referee as a shield to stop Eddie from getting hit with the knee again. Of course, the Boston Knee Party, as I just mentioned. Excellent heel work there. Eddie ends up hitting the knee, but moments later, but Morrissey rolls to the outside. Very good ring awareness there. And of course, Morrissey being such a big dude, it's hard for Eddie to get the dead weight back in. But while Morrissey's on the outside, he finds a steel chain. Who keeps putting all this stuff under the ring? And unbeknownst to the referee, wraps it around his fist, hits Eddie Edwards in the head as Eddie Edwards is attempting a suicide dive. Eddie is basically out cold, but Morrissey still hits his big powerbomb finisher anyway. Morrissey gets the win. Solid match. Again, kind of feel like it was just, a glorified TV match, with all due respect to both men here, but good match nonetheless. Moose hypes up his match with Chris Sabin backstage, of course happening later on in the event, and then we get a video package for the Drama King. Of course, this is the gimmick of the former Aiden English. He will be coming to Impact soon. Match number 4, we had Mahabali Shera and Madman Fulton try to hijack the show. Scott D'Amore makes a surprise tag match, and their opponents are the returning Finjuice. Somehow, Finjuice manages to squash the absolute massive team of Shera and Fulton, with Fulton taking the L. Meh. Thank you, next. Unnecessary. Match number 5. Moose versus Chris Sabin. Sabin targets Moose's knees straight out the gate. And of course, this does work on many levels, as A, you've got to take out the big man and bring him to your level, and B, Sabin wants revenge for what Moose did to James Storms' knee. I honestly wasn't a very big fan of this match, which is a shame because it was one of the ones I was mostly looking forward to. But Moose was very inconsistent with his selling of the knee. 1 minute he was, then he wasn't, etc., etc. And of course, Sabin, the much smaller man and meant to be the underdog babyface, was in control for the majority of this match, and got to the point where the fans actually started cheering for Moose. And then Moose had to resort to cheap heat, flip the fans off, but then right on cue, does an impressive vertical leap dropkick, hits a fall-away moonsault slam off the top rope, which got a holy shit chant, and then goes, oh wait, yeah, I need to sell my knee. I don't think the dropkick should have happened at all. I know it's one of his trademark spots, but if he had pulled himself up more, then hit the fall-away moonsault slam, it would have made more sense. But again, it's still more of a babyface thing than a heel thing. But what do I know? I'm just a guy with a podcast. Overall, it was a good match in terms of spots, but if it had been slightly different, if the beginning and the middle had have been just flipped, and if you watch the match, you know what I'm talking about, it honestly could have gone from a good match to a great match. Moose hit some brutal chops throughout the match, which was probably the highlight for me. Really good chops. And, Chris Sabin got the win eventually with a victory roll. We got a promo from the Decay hyping up their Knockouts title win. Of course, trying to entice people to go back and watch the pre-show once this event's finished, sort of thing. Match number 6 for the Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Championships. We had a fatal 4-way tag team match. It was the teams of Rich Swann and Willie Mack versus Fala Bar and the debuting No Way Jose. This was meant to be TJP, but for an undisclosed reason, Fala needed a new partner at the last minute. Some are reporting that TJ may or may not have gotten injured before this, so I'm hoping TJ is okay. They were versing the Good Brothers, Anderson and Gallows, and the reigning champions, Violent by Design. And in this match, VBD was represented by Joe Doring and Rhino, of course, with Eric Young and Cody Dean, at ringside. No Way Jose, or just No Way, as he'll be known going forward, was very over with the fans in attendance. The Good Brothers controlled the pace on Rich Swann to start off. No Way gets a hot tag. We get a face-off between Joe Doring and Gallows. They smack the crap out of each other, but of course everyone else ruins it when everyone runs in, takes them out. They do the traditional everyone gets their shit in spot for the tag match. Good Brothers hit the Magic Killer and a 1-2-3. It's that old school recipe they talk about in all their promos. And we have a new Impact World Tag Team Champions. And I like the little touch that they did, pin Rhino, who is one of the reigning defending tag team champions. It solidifies the victory a bit more, in a 4-way type of situation. We see Kenny Omega and Sami Callihan, respectively, backstage getting ready for the main event tag title match. And then we come out and we have match number 7, which is the Knockouts Tag Team Championship. We have, of course, the reigning defending Knockouts champion, the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo, versus a mystery opponent. The fans were actually strongly behind Deonna in her entrance, again, because she's meant to be a heel, but she's just such a freaking good wrestler, man. You can't help but cheer for her. Her mystery opponent is Thunder Rosa. There we get dueling chants of Thunder Rosa and Virtuosa. Say that 5 times fast. Deonna works on Rosa's arm during the match, of course, trying to soften it up for her patented Fujiwara armbar submission. Deonna did a really sexy exploder suplex at some point in the middle of this match. It was perfect form. I just was just fixing up my notes, and then I just looked over and it was like, bam, and I was like, nice. Anyway, Thunder Rosa got a very close near fall off the top with a double stump. Thunder Rosa attempted her finisher, of course, the Thunder Driver, or Fire Thunder Driver, I can't think what she calls it. I think she just calls it the Thunder Driver. My bad. Deonna counters, hits a snap cradle pile driver. Of course, that's her other finisher, which she calls the Queen's Gambit. And Deonna retains her Knockouts Championship. It was a very good match, but it was a lot shorter than I was expecting. And of course, after that, we have Mickie James. She makes her return. Hardcore Country! Again, this was almost Song of the Week, but then something else happened. Of course, it led to... it was going to be Hardcore Country, then it was going to be Jeff Hardy's No More Words, but I thought, no, with John Cena's return, it had to be the John Cena song. Anyway, back to the Mickie James return. Mickie James, of course, is one of the producers for the upcoming all-women's pay-per-view for NWA, which both myself and Seek are actually very, very, very keen for. Looking forward to see some, indie wrestlers get some shine on a pay-per-view situation. Deonna tells Mickie to grab her trash bag and get out of here. Insert Ashton Kutcher burn here. Of course, Mickie then hits the Mick kick on Deonna and lays her out. Matt Striker said it best here. Mickie motherfucking James. I don't know if he actually pulled himself up or if he actually got beeped out, because he said it really quick, but yeah. Then they announced the next Impact special will be Homecoming on July 31st, where they'll be holding a mixed tag team tournament, to crown the Homecoming King and Queen of Impact for 2021. Super fucking random, but I'm here for it. Match number 8 / the main event. It was a no DQ match for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship. We had the Death Machine, Sami Callihan, aka Multiverse John Crossfire, if you know, you know, versus Kenny Omega, of course, the reigning defending champion, with the invisible hand, as he calls himself, Don Callis. The fans direct "You got fired" chants at Don Callis. Of course, in storyline, he was fired as his EVP. Sammy got "fuck him up, Sammy, fuck him up," boom, boom, chants, big pop. ECW feels on that one. Don Callis' introduction for Kenny Omega before the match was just absolutely brilliant. Sammy hit his pile driver right as the bell rang, and holy shit, was it close. I almost had a heart attack. I thought Sammy had honestly beaten Kenny in like 10 seconds. It was that close. Don Callis joined commentary. He did it a couple times where he got on commentary and got off, got on commentary, got off. Phrasing. Sammy sliced and diced Kenny's face with a pizza cutter. At this point, Mrs. Crossfire had her hands buried in her face. She ain't a fan of that deathmatch style. Sammy goes for a suicide dive, but Omega hits him with a trash can lid. The camera work kind of ruined that, because you could tell that Kenny was like waiting there with the trash can lid. But nonetheless, Kenny takes control with all his usual spots, and then Kenny decides that he's hardcore, and Kenny stabs Sammy with a fork and then grinds it into Sammy's mouth. On one hand, ew. On the other hand, fuck yes. They brawl around the ring. Kenny places a table on Sammy, does his double stomp. That's trademark Kenny, if you followed his work in Japan. Sammy pile drove Kenny through a table on the floor. Terry Funk style, looked sexy as fuck. The table broke beautifully in half. Thought that was going to be the finish, but nope. Sammy introduced a barbed wire chair. Fuck yes. Kenny hit his Kataro Crusher and a powerbomb, respectively, sending Kenny both back and face first on the chair. They definitely made good use of all the gimmicks here. Sammy tombstone pile drove Kenny onto the barbed wire chair, and again, I thought that was it. So close. Kenny just got the shoulder up. Kenny threw the salt in Sami Callihan's eyes, so Sammy accidentally, quote, unquote, accidentally pile drove the referee. Kenny takes out a second referee intentionally after he's frustrated that Sammy kicked out of something he did. The Good Brothers try to interfere, get deterred. Sammy filled the ring with thumbtacks, but then Don Callis distracted Sammy. Kenny hit a bunch of V-triggers, loaded up his knee with a thumbtack-covered V-trigger, hit the one-winged angel into the thumbtacks. Kenny Omega retained the Impact World Tag Team Championship. Absolutely fantastic match. despite, a couple of camera slips up here and there. Thumbs up. But then the lights go out, and it's Jay White. Please do not let him be the guy that beats Kenny for the Impact World title. I mean, the fans in the Impact Zone were solidly behind Switchblade Jay White here, but I personally just don't care for him. Like, he's a great wrestler, but I've just never really resonated with him, sort of thing. Kenny and the Good Brothers threw up the Too Sweet hand gesture. Of course, Jay White is, still a strong member of the current iteration of the Bullet Club / the leader of it in Japan. But it goes off the air before we can see what happened next. It was a solid show all around. Main event match was definitely match of the night, followed by the opening Ultimate X match. I do look forward to seeing Impact continue to go on. Hopefully sooner than later they can be back where they once were. But yeah, as I said, there was a couple of things that I may have been a bit harsh on here, but overall, from top to bottom, it was a good card. I would recommend giving it a watch. And before we get into our recap-ish of the Warrior Wrestling show, I'll take a break and give you the match of the week. And off the back of that no DQ match at Slammiversary, and of course with AEW having a Texas Death Match this week, which would have been the day of recording this if I recorded this on schedule, but it happened a couple of days ago, so congratulations to Murder Hawk Lance Archer on becoming the new IWGP United States Champion in a brutal Texas Deathmatch against Jon Moxley on AEW television. But back to the match of the week. Because of all those factors that I just mentioned, today the match of the week is Cowboy James Storm. Sorry about your damn luck. Versus Wildcat Chris Harris in a Texas death match at TNA Sacrifice 2007. This was one of the very first TNA Impact matches I saw back in the day. And I was absolutely hooked from the get-go. Of course, these two had much success. Great success. High five. Had much success as the America's Most Wanted Tag Team, but in true pro wrestling fashion, it ended when James Storm broke a beer bottle over Chris Harris's head because he was the one that wanted the spotlight. A story they actually revisited a few years later with James Storm and Bobby Roode as Beer Money Incorporated. Of course, this time Storm was the babyface. Now, you can watch this match on either Impact Plus, or there is a version of it on Impact's YouTube channel. There's a great back and forth match, lots of blood, both men refusing to stay down, lots of great storytelling with the false finishes, especially towards the end. The commentators helping get their point across. Don't want to spoil it too much. Go check this match out. I showed it to Mrs. Crossfire, and she actually marked out pretty hard for it. So with that being said, it's time for our recap-ish of Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series Night 2. Match number 1 is KC Navarro versus Dante Martin. Two young upstarts with a lot of potential. I've mentioned on here before how I am a fan of KC Navarro. It's a very indie-rific match. Navarro was definitely the standout here, with all due respect to Dante Martin. Martin hit a sick Death Valley drive, a modified Death Valley driver at some point during the match, which was probably my favorite move of the whole match. Dante Martin got the win via pinfall after a front flip stunner. Say that 5 times fast. Solid opener, good way to grab the fans' attention in this type of indie-rific environment. Match 2, we had Danhausen. Very nice, very evil, no swearing. Yes, I say that every time I mention Danhausen. Sue me. Versus Tiger Style Lee Moriarty. Now, it started nice and technical, or should I say nice and technical Hausen, with your traditional chain wrestling Hausen. Yes, I'm a Markhausen. Nice, slow-paced, slow-build match. Fans solidly behind Danhausen here. Lee Moriarty got taken to Suplex City Hausen. Danhausen tried to introduce his jar of teeth, but Moriarty hit a butterfly falcon's arrow, which was very, very nice in its own right. Very nice. I don't know why I'm quoting Borat so much today. Again, I've been awake since like 6 a.m. It's currently 20 to 8. My bad. Danhausen made a comeback, poured some teeth into Moriarty's mouth. Ew, but trademarked Danhausen, and hit his version of the go to sleep, or the very nice, very Neville, as he calls it, gets the pin. I had a show of respect after the match with a little funny moment of Moriarty pointing to the teeth on the floor and just being like, what the hell, man? And Danhausen just kind of shrugs like, sorry, you know. Very good. Match number 3, Calvin Tankman versus Jordan Oliver. I was very excited for this match as soon as they announced it. Jordan Oliver tries to out-wrestle Calvin Tankman. Obviously, Calvin Tankman, being the big man, overpowers him. Oliver tries to chop Tankman, but again, size difference proved very ineffective. Jordan Oliver picked up the pace here using his speed for both offense and defense. He got out of the ring to kill time in an attempt to, quote-unquote, rattle the psyche of Calvin Tankman. Oliver managed to rock Tankman, hit a few suicide dives, but again, Tankman's power comes into play, just throws Jordan Oliver around like it's nothing. Some very good crowd interaction in this match. Not sure if it would be deemed COVID safe, but it is what it is. What's done is done. Tankman shows some impressive speed of his own, which is always impressive, especially for a man of his size. Oliver got turned inside out by Tankman, but kicked out at 1 while still playing dead, quote-unquote, getting over the whole heart and resilience, of the underdog babyface. The commentators referred to the beating Jordan Oliver was taking by Tankman as involuntary yoga, which, again, popped the shit out of me. Oliver got back into the ring at a 9 count, but remained out on his feet until Tankman hit a cocky face wash with his boot, which woke Jordan Oliver up, but Tankman still knocked him down over and over. Tankman missed a splash. Oliver took out the legs. Oliver attempted his trademark slingshot cutter. Tankman swatted him away like a fly, hit the Tankman driver for the win. This was a very one-sided match in terms of offense, but it still told a really, really good story for both guys. Both guys got themselves over really well. They shook hands after the match, while Oliver is still on the ground in pain. Match number 4 was the first time ever the Octopus Jonathan Gresham versus the American Wolf Davey Richards. Now, this was billed as a technical classic, and honestly, if you look at the respective resumes of both competitors here, it's pretty easy to see why. Now, I've never been a big fan per se of Davey Richards as a singles wrestler. Of course, I love him and Eddie Edwards as the American Wolves collectively as a tag team. But yeah, definitely can't doubt the ability of this man regardless. Can't doubt the ability of this man regardless of, which side of the fence you're on with him. And as a side note, I do look forward to seeing what Davey Richards does in MLW coming up. The match starts with, the Ring of Honor style handshake, of course, the Code of Honor. They did mention this on commentary, which I appreciated. Very mat-based for the most part, constantly exchanging holds. Davey Richards really worked some strong style kicks in there. Davey headbutted Gresham like 20 times, if not more, when it did start to, break down while they were both on the top rope before he delivered a big superplex. Honestly, the headbutts concerned the hell out of me. Davey did do a good job at pulling them back, but there's still not much room for error in that situation, especially when you add the fact in, that they're on the top rope as well. Gresham took control, hit a powerbomb, and the transition itself into the powerbomb was really cool. Davey Richards randomly hit a jumping tombstone piledriver, which maybe should have been the finish, but it was kind of like an ode to, 90s Japanese-style wrestling, especially if you watched, old, Japanese junior heavyweight tournament matches. Gresham hits a flurry of offense, and then he ultimately makes Davey Richards submit to his octopus stretch submission. Very solid match, especially if you're into technical wrestling. I would highly suggest you go check this one out. Match number 5. We had the Varsity Blondes, of course, Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison with Julia Hart versus Pretty Marketable, the team of Victor Benjamin, the Savage Gentleman, and Richard Holiday with Lady Frost, of course, the wife of Victor Benjamin. I am a very big fan of both these men, especially Victor Benjamin. And I would love to see them stay as a permanent team, at least on the indies. Pretty marketable control the pace after some slight communication. They play it off, like they're a new team still getting used to each other, which I'm pretty sure was intentional. Lots of quick tags. Brian Pillman Jr. took a very good beating before hitting a springboard crossbody out of nowhere, taking out both of his opponents. Griff Garrison got the hot tag here, which I liked because on paper you could argue that Brian Pillman, he is the star of the two. So I like that Griff kind of got a chance to, just get his shit in, if you will. Victor Benjamin, of course, hits his pop-up spin kick, which he calls Clockwork. If you haven't seen him do that move, at least go see, check out his greatest moves on YouTube or something. Looks fucking brutal. Of course, he does have a real martial arts background that he does use for his wrestling persona. Pretty marketable. Had some pretty good teamwork in here. Almost got the victory, but Brian Pillman broke it up. Pillman got a tag, and Varsity Blondes picked up the win via pinfall with a rolling elbow springboard clothesline combination. Of course, shades of Brian Pillman's father, Brian Pillman, with the springboard clothesline. And of course, Pillman Jr. pinned Richard Holiday. Lady Frost, with an act of anger because her boys lost, attacked Julia Hart after the fact. Match number 6. We had the Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship. Of course, the very first time that this championship will be defended after the champion was crowned last month, which of course I did covered in my episode titled Lucha Juice. I believe that was episode 3, may have been 4. I think it was 3. Anyway, we have RMS, the reigning champion, versus Daga. Now, this was very much a student versus teacher scenario. RMS was showing respect to his mentor in Daga, and for whatever reason, Daga took offense to that. Now we have a match. Very high-paced lucha-style matchup, obviously, with a mixture of the American style. RMS slipped out of a wheelbarrow arm drag attempt, slipped on a wheelbarrow armbar attempt, but Daga covered it up very well. That was probably the only hiccup in the entire match that I caught anyway. Daga took control, worked on the knee of RMS in an attempt to keep RMS grounded. RMS tried to build momentum, but Daga hit a scoop power slam on the ring apron. Very nasty bump, and Daga kind of got himself caught up in the ropes when he hit it as well, and I was just like, oof, big oof. RMS had an explosive pocket of offense and attempt to regain control, which was capped with a beautiful 450 splash, but obviously this did nothing but further damage his knee. Both men went back and forth with some high-impact strikes. Daga got his shit in. RMS started to work on Daga's leg. RMS started to work on Daga's leg, specifically the knee. A little tit-for-tat action here. RMS hit a really sexy top rope runner, followed by 2 aeroplane spin blue thunder bombs, and he retains the Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship via pinfall. Excellent first title defense for RMS. I wouldn't mind if he had it for a while. I'm expecting some amazing high-flying action to come with this championship. Definitely match of the night thus far. Match number 7, we had Brian Cage versus Ninja Mac. Speaking of high-flying, this dude is nuts. Of course, it was originally scheduled to be Leo Rush, but of course Leo Rush is injured and has allegedly retired as a result. The match starts off with Brian Cage being taken off guard by Ninja Mac's high-flying antics, which was a nice little touch when you factor in the fact that Cage is double, if not triple, his size. Unfortunately, Ninja Mac slipped on the top rope, which does happen, trust me. They played it off like he'd tweaked his ankle, very smart. They did a crisscross spot on the ropes, but however with a twist. Ninja Mac did some flippy-doos. Not overly familiar with Ninja Mac, to be honest. I have seen some of his stuff here and there, but he does seem like he's very green, and if anyone else that listening to this is a fan of Ninja Mac, I'm not meaning that in, a harsh way. That's just how he came across. Cage hits the F5, of course his take on Brock Lesnar's F5. Ninja Mac kicked out. Cage went for his drill claw finisher, but Ninja Mac countered with a series of kick. Cage kicks out of a pin attempt by Mac after multiple flippy-doos off the top rope. Mac misses another top rope move. Cage hits a massive discus clothesline. I've always loved the way that Cage does his. I kind of wish that when I did mine it looked half as good, but here we are. Now I'm just stuck behind a microphone. Cage got the win via pinfall with a version of the drill call off the top rope. It was what it was. I am a very big fan of Brian Cage. I've made a point of it myself to get merch off him every time I've got to meet him here in Australia in World Series Wrestling. Ninja Mac did leave a lot to be desired from me, but again, as I said, nothing personal to anyone that's a fan of Ninja Mac or, of course, Ninja Mac himself. Match number 8. We had Robert Ego Anthony with Frank the Clown versus the Murder Hawk monster Lance Archer. Everybody dies in a no-holds-barred match. You can't read that without doing a Vinnie Mac impression. Murder Hawk takes out an army of clown impersonators, to get over how dominant he is, and the match starts with him overpowering and toying with Robert Ego Anthony. Lance Archer goes to hit his finisher early on in the match, but Frank the Clown comes in, shoots a confetti cannon in Archer's face. This is where Robert Ego Anthony takes control. We have more shenanigans from Frank the Clown. Archer and Ego brawl through the crowd. Archer tries to take Ego away on a John Deere cart, but it, quote, won't start. So instead, Archer just drags Ego back through the fence and lets a few of them get a few shots in on Robert Ego Anthony here as well. The two brawl up into the bleachers with Frank the Clown slowly following behind. Lance Archer uses some hand sanitizer to wash his hands as a little comedy spot. And then he dirties them again anyway by grabbing the trash can lid off one of the actual stadium bins. Ego gets a rear naked choke on Archer on the floor while Frank stomps away in his, quote, $5,000 clown shoes, which popped me. Bit of back and forth here. They trade near falls. Frank tried to use another confetti cannon, but Murder Hawk stomped him, and Frank ends up getting shot himself in the... I was going to say crown jewels, but maybe I should say clown jewels with said confetti cannon. Murder Hawk got the win with his blackout finisher, of course, the reverse crucifix bomb. Frank the Clown tried to chloroform Murder Hawk. Yes, I just said he tried to chloroform Murder Hawk. But Frank gets knocked out and dragged up to the top of the bleachers, and Frank gets thrown off the bleachers. Good God Almighty, as God is my witness, he is broken in half. Of course, a little nod to, his father-in-law, Mick Foley. Very fun, nice fun little match. I've enjoyed it quite a lot. Match number 9 / the main event was the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship. I don't know why I'm trying to do a Howard Finkel impression all of a sudden, but here we are. We got Smiley Kylie Rae, who of course is the champion, versus the coolest wrestler you'll ever meet, Lady Frost. I really hope we get Kylie Rae here in Australia in WSW World Series Wrestling when this pandemic stuff, is able to blow over, so I can drunkenly sing along to the Pokemon theme with a bunch of other drunk wrestling fans. Big fan of both of these women. I was personally pulling for Lady Frost in this one, as her and her husband Victor Benjamin, who I was just talking about before, are by far my favourite wrestling couple. Besides maybe, Mike and Maria. Of course, Kanellis Bennett. Kylie Rae was very, very over with the fans here. Some very nice arm drags by Kylie Rae amongst some other nice little chain. Even Teak was popping for the Ricky Steamboat-esque arm drags. She loves her some technical wrestling. That's why I love her. One of the reasons why I love her. Anyway, Lady Frost took over after interference by Victor Benjamin. This was actually a very short match, considering, but it was a very good back and forth nonetheless. Lady Frost hit some amazing moonsaults in here, showing off her, gymnast skills. Kylie Rae retained the championship with an inside cradle, and honestly, for such a short match, it was really good. As I just said, Aramez versus Darga was probably match of the night in my opinion. Probably would have been Kylie Rae versus Lady Frost had it have gone just a little bit longer. Honestly, I felt this show wasn't as good as the very first one last month, but I am still very keen for the next installment of Warrior Wrestling, of course, Stadium Series Night 3, which will take place on August 21st, 22nd for us here in Australia. So far, they have announced that Brian Cage and Switchblade Jay White will be there, and Kylie Ray will be defending her championship against Thunder Rosa. I am very, very looking forward to that match. That's probably going to be match of the night on that card, to be honest. But yeah, thanks always, to you guys for giving me a platform to just rant about professional wrestling and my love for it. I apologize if this episode does seem rushed. As I said, I'm literally recording this, first thing in the morning, the day before it's meant to come out. I've been dealing with some mental health issues. My sincerest apologies. But please go follow all my social medias, especially the Court in Conversation Facebook page. As always, all links will be below. Head over to Facebook specifically so you can give me, all your thoughts, opinions. I'm wanting to do another interactive episode, much like I did with episode 5's tag team episode, and I can't do another without your help. I do have one in mind that I want to do, and I'll say it now. I want to do the top 5 most underrated tag teams, so like obscure tag teams, tag teams you feel that just don't get their due sort of thing. But yeah, we'll see how we go. Please, as always, buy a shirt so I can buy tacos. Again, the link will be below to that. And head to the Belconnen Community Centre in 3 weeks' time on August 14th, if you're in the ACT area, for ICW Insaneasylum. Of course, that is the biggest show of the year with all championships on the line. And just to sound like a crack record, all of those links will be in the description below. I am the Essential John L. Crossfire. Thank you so much for listening and bearing with me. You were just caught in conversation.